and fuel. Rick joins us now on the hotline. Rick, were you one of the people canvassed and you said, no, LeBron's not one of the best players in the game anymore? Were you on that list?
No, I've never masqueraded as a executive or a scout. I occasionally play one on TV, but I was not taken as one in this particular poll. It would be interesting to have some sense of when we say executive, what are we talking about? Like, are we talking about an assistant GM? Are we talking about GM? Are we talking about where are they on the chain? But you guys have probably talked about it.
You know what? That's like Jason imitating a sports talk show host in a movie. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. Good morning. Good morning. Yes.
Starting the day that way, Rob Parker. Goodness gracious.
We're 2.5 hours into this, Rick. It's what the morning has been for me so far.
Yes, it is. It's a rough ride. It's a rough ride. It's all good.
Yeah, God bless you. Get some icy hot afterward. You're obviously going to be tattooed. I mean, I don't know why people equate this with an MVP vote. Like you have 5 names on the ballot and LeBron wasn't mentioned, or even LeBron taking it that way. You got 10 separate people that are naming somebody, and there's no metric, there's no statistic, there's no achievement. There is not a single thing that would lead you to say that LeBron James was the best player in the league last year. Not one. So, if you did pick LeBron over Giannis or KD, you would be basing it on what he's done previously or what you think he can get back to, but not what he has demonstrated that he is as of right today.
Definitely. And we got to always understand this, and all of LeBron's minions, it's not a lifetime achievement award. You know what I mean? Like that's what they think it is. Like if you say anything about LeBron, what are you talking about? He's one of the greatest players of all time, and he's done this, he's done that, he's been all these fun. No, we're talking about right now.
Right. And if you take 10 people and you ask them, give me one name, it's not shocking. It would have been shocking if someone had said LeBron, to be honest, over those two guys, because of what we just saw them demonstrate. And I understand both of them. And by the way, if we are talking about right now, then how come the Steph Curry minions aren't speaking up, or the Nikola Jokic minions? I don't even know if he has minions. But if there's got to be a couple, right? Why are they not speaking up? Because both of those guys have a better case that they're the best player in the league right now than LeBron James does. At least Steph Curry was the leading scorer in the league last season. Nikola Jokic is the reigning MVP. But you don't hear them or their minions complaining that they didn't get any votes among these 10 people, or that they're now motivated because it's the washed Splash Brothers.
The washed king, right? How many times is LeBron going to go to this well? Don't you remember after he didn't win the MVP? In 2020, he kind of vowed that he was, you watch. How could you guys disrespect me and all this? I'm like, what are you talking about? Like, Giannis, not only did Giannis have a great season and the Bucks had the best record, Giannis had better numbers than the year before when he won the MVP. And LeBron somehow thought he was going to be the MVP? Rick, I don't get it.
Yeah. Well, I thought that LeBron deserved the MVP that year.
Did you really?
Overall. Yes, I did.
Anthony Davis had better numbers than him all across the board, except for assists.
Yeah, but to me, it's not just numbers, and that's why I would never make a case that Steph Curry is the best player in the league, and it's why Nikola Jokic didn't get my MVP vote this year. Giannis, for the first time, got my MVP vote this season because it's not, for me, just the numbers that you get, but it's how you get those numbers. And I dare say that when I look at Anthony Davis's numbers in that season, they were a product of playing with LeBron James. that it wasn't as if Anthony Davis was the driving force of that team. He was the beneficiary of the things that LeBron James was doing, the way he was organizing that team. The reason that I gave Giannis or put Giannis at the top of my MVP ballot this year is because for the first time I saw him taking a leadership role. I saw him playing below the free throw line and making plays. And they don't necessarily end up with a number as a result of that play, but it ends up with an open shot or an easy play. And those were things that I did not see Giannis doing in previous years. So MVP for me goes a little bit deeper than the numbers across the board. It to me is always there's the element of how you get those numbers, how do you lead your team, and just the intangibles. You know, the Milwaukee Bucks started slow, and Giannis was there saying, "Hey, we're doing some things different. We're changing things up. We just need to stay the course." That was an emotional leadership that he provided for them that they needed and that was important to come from their best player. And so those are intangibles, and people can say that's narrative. It's not hard data, but to me, those are elements that make for an MVP. And LeBron James teaching AD how to win, to me, and how to put together winning numbers was an important part of that season.
Now, wait a minute, Rick. You told me you voted for Julius Randle for MVP. Now you're telling me you changed it and went with Giannis?
Well, see, Jason, I play a different character when I'm on with you in the evening.
That's right.
Oh, okay.
I play to my crowd. And okay. Rob Parker may be right. If you were buying that, then we have some
exactly. And you know what, Rick? It's easier to say those things. You know nobody's listening to that show with Jason at night. So it's
goodness!
Wow!
Oh my goodness!
I'm just kidding. I never missed the Jason Smith show. I never listened to it, so I never miss it.
Wow!
No, come on,
Jason. Wow! And here Jason told me that he decided to do you a solid and bring you onto the show this morning.
Right, I know.
Because, wow.
Rick, next time I fill in, you're my guy. Okay, next time you're my guy.
Thank you. Be happy to do it. And by the way, I've never ducked so many times on a radio show in my life. My goodness. Wow.
Ric Bucher, our guest here, the Jason Smith Show with Rob Parker in for Dan and the Danettes today. All right, so from LeBron, let's talk about something you and I talked about earlier in the week on a show that has more affiliates than Rob Parker's show.
I'm sorry.
I'm sorry. Was that? Should I not? I'm sorry about that. So listen. We're still talking about the fallout of the Draymond Green, Kevin Durant situation, the show they did in which they both said, hey, it's Bob Myers and Steve Kerr's fault why the dynasty broke up because of the way they handled our disagreement that we had in 2018. As time has gone on, like you see this, look, Draymond Green is a smart guy. He knows the impact of his words. Is this Draymond pulling a James Harden going, you know what, whatever conversations we've had at the Olympics when everybody's hanging out, hey, I want out of Golden State now because I want to get someplace else because you're blowtorching your GM and your coach for something that was 3 years ago.
Yeah. I have not heard definitively that was the purpose behind what he said. And there remains a possibility that it was simply, I want to clear my name, and I want to do something that's explosive on my first podcast as I prepare myself for my post-playing career. I will tell you that it did not sit well at all with the Warriors, and
it shouldn't.
It really shouldn't. From either one of them, and it does undermine their authority. And moving forward, trying to put this team together, and as I said before, like the players, it would be one thing if this was just the championship team, and these were all guys that have this team was composed of guys that had won a championship with Draymond, and they could all look at it and go, okay, Draymond's just being Draymond, but they have a bunch of guys who have never had that success, who have never been in the foxhole with Steve Kerr, have not seen the moves that Bob Myers made in order to fill out a championship roster. So you got guys like Jordan Poole and James Wiseman and Juan Toscano-Anderson who now look at Steve Kerr and Bob Myers in a different light in terms of what Draymond said. Now they're like, really? That's how we handle, like, how they handled that situation. And Draymond is saying, like, they don't know how to do this. So when the next incident that bubbles up, like, are guys going to just step in line or take the counsel that they get from the Warriors? I would think that they're going to look at it maybe in a different way and say, well, how do you know what you're doing? Like, you messed up KD being here. And the worst part of it is KD was leaving anyway.
Yep.
Like, that argument and that situation, everybody, it's become such a big deal. How dare Draymond do it? I mean, there was an overreaction on that too. Beefs like that happen. And the fact that if you watch, and I've gone back and watched that play more times than I've maybe watched any other play, KD's at least in part to blame because of how he played that particular play. There was 5.5 seconds left on the clock when Draymond got the rebound. Clay runs the floor and runs past Draymond, getting to a spot because it's tied 106. You don't need a three. KD trails and is clapping his hands like, give me the ball, give me the ball, give me the ball. Draymond Green was the leading playmaker on that team, the leading assist man, the previous 3 years, and again that season. So it would not be extraordinary for Draymond Green to lead the break. Was he looking to take the shot? No. We know Draymond's going to get the ball to a guy who can shoot. He doesn't want to take that shot. He was just trying to create the best shot possible and fell down. And KD's the one who, like, you screwed that up. You didn't give me the ball. And that led to everything else. So, I mean, if I want to look at it, I can, rather than immediately blaming Draymond, I'd look at it and say, hey, KD, you needed to show a little more respect to Draymond in that situation. And by any means, you're in the middle of a game. It ain't time to start getting on a guy because he turned the ball over. If you're doing that, there's no team that can survive that, and you don't see that happen, especially with good teams, especially with championship caliber teams. So I just feel like that whole situation has been twisted into something that it was not, and this is the last twist. Is now we're going to twist it into it's Steve Kerr and Bob Myers' fault. I mean, it's become something completely else from what it started to be.
Hey, Rick, I want to ask you quickly, did we know the end was coming for Patrick Beverley? Ty Lue benched him, during the playoffs, and now I think he's been traded to 8 different teams since he's left the Clippers, something like that. But did Ty Lue kind of signal that this was going to happen, didn't he?
Yeah, well, look, I mean, obviously they made some decisions, particularly in the playoffs when he was being yo-yoed in and out of the starting lineup, in and out of the rotation. And he's making $14 million, and he's a big personality, and his game can no longer match the presence that he has on a team or the money that he's making. Now, they, just from a logistical standpoint, they had to make a move because they had too many guaranteed contracts, right. and they were going to keep Nick Batum, and they also
who played well in the playoffs.
Yes, and Pat Bev, I've never been more impressed than how he played in the playoffs in spite of his role being yo-yoed all over the place. But the question you have to ask is, one, how we can get $30 million off of our cap. The luxury tax that they're paying is still they're paying a $90 million luxury tax as is. It was going to be some $125 million. They had to open up a roster spot and move multiple guys. And you had to ask the question, if we use Pat Bev the same way, where he may not play multiple games in a row, he may only play 5 minutes one particular night, is Pat Bev going to be okay with that an entire season? Or is that going to be a problem in our locker room? And it was one thing for him to swallow it during the playoffs. It would be another for him to do it an entire year. And I think they looked at it and said, look, Reggie Jackson played well. Terrence Mann played well. We have Paul George is our playmaker anyway. We can survive without Pat Bev, and we need to make a move. So I think all of those factors contributed to why he's been moved along, and we'll see whether I could see where he could have a role with the Minnesota Timberwolves. I think that's where we last saw him, or where he was last dealt. But then again, you look at those young guys, and they didn't take well to Jimmy Butler's approach, and I would imagine Pat Bev isn't that different. So we shall see. But I think there were a number of factors. But one of them, as you mentioned, Rob, is the fact that Pat Bev isn't quite what Pat Bev used to be.
No doubt. No doubt.
He's on Twitter at Ric Bucher. That is at Ric Bucher, Fox Sports 1 analyst. Check out his On the Ball with Ric Bucher podcast. The book Rebound with Brian Grant, available in bookstores everywhere. No, you were fine. Well, look.
Albert Beer and I got into it, and me and Jason. But Rick, me and you, we go way back. Rick, we were covering the NBA when the ball had laces on it. You know what I'm saying?
No, easy, Rob. Uncle Rob, easy, bro.
Rob was the guy that said, Dr. Naismith, you got to cut the bottom off of the basket and let the ball go all the way through. The peach basket, you got to go back up and get it.
Yeah, if you look closely at the photos, there's a second guy sitting behind Red Auerbach smoking a cigar.
Who would that be?
It's Uncle Rob. It's Uncle Rob.
Unbelievable.
Rick, as always, buddy, thanks so much. Thanks. Have a great weekend.